Hi everybody and welcome back to Heimler's History US Government Edition. Now in case you hadn't noticed, people tend to have strong opinions on political matters. And in this video I want to try to explain where political opinions come from. Well, when a daddy political opinion really loves a mommy political opinion, they get together and... Nope, shut that down. Now the reason why we need to talk about where political opinions come from is because if we understand where they come from and how they form, then we are better able to understand how to form our own political opinions. And here's why this is really important. The way things are today, like if you find yourself in a social situation and people start talking politics, there is an expectation that you will have a fully formed political opinion on every issue, no matter how obscure. Hey man, how do you feel about America's policy about foreign aid in Uzbekistan? Oh man, how do you think I feel? I mean, I really feel something. All right, we'll see you later. What's Uzbekistan? Is that a restaurant? So we're expected to have a fully formed opinion on every issue, but here's the dirty little secret that we carry around with us. We don't. But since that pressure is there and is very real, we end up fighting people about things that we don't even know about and frankly don't even care about, and that is crazy. So what I'd like to do in this video is to try to bring a little sanity to this whole realm. And to do that, we need to first consider why people's political opinions matter. Second, we're going to look at the two different kinds of political opinions, and then third, we're going to try to apply all of this. So first, in the realm of politics, do people's opinions really matter? And the answer is yes, and here's why. Reason number one, whether people's opinions are based in reality or not, those opinions drive people's political actions. Number two, politicians and parties actually change their behavior based on the opinions of people. Reason number three, people's opinions can explain policy outcomes. So in general, if people want more government intervention, government spending increases and vice versa. So no matter how ill-formed people's political opinions are, they are powerful and therefore important precisely because they inspire action. All right, second, let's look at the two kinds of political opinions. So the political scientists who study these things basically classify opinions into two camps. There are preformed opinions and there are opinions formed on the spot. And I'll tell you real quick what the first one is and then we'll spend some more time on the second. Preformed opinions are rooted in broad values that apply to big issues. And usually these opinions fall along a spectrum from liberal to conservative. So preformed opinions maybe won't help you answer the very specific question about foreign aid in Uzbekistan, but preformed opinions will answer the broader philosophical questions like, to what degree should the government be involved in the lives of its citizens? If you're on the more conservative side, you'll say the less the better. If you're on the more liberal side, you'll say more government in people's lives can be a very good thing. Okay, so that's what we mean by preformed opinions. What about opinions formed on the spot? These are the opinions that come out at a party when someone asks you a political question. Or these are the opinions that come out when somebody asks you a question on a survey and you have to say something. You don't want to look like a fool and say nothing. And most political opinions fall into this category. For example, what if I asked you your opinion on climate change? You could probably actually give me some kind of answer which would line up with the Republican platform or the Democratic platform. But come on, let's just have a moment here. Like, hey, can y'all, I need y'all to, yeah, go ahead and go. I need the room for a second. Can y'all clear out for just a second? All right, the fake people are gone. So it's just you and me. Let's just be honest. Have you really done the research on climate change? Like, how many hours have you actually devoted to really studying this topic? And how far have you looked into the data of the climate science? And how qualified are you to make sense of that data? I mean, come on, let's just admit it. This is a very complex and complicated issue. And if you're like most people in America, me included, you haven't done the research, you're not qualified to interpret the scientific data, but you have an opinion on it nonetheless. Now, the really fascinating question is, okay, if you don't know about it, if you haven't learned about it, then how is it that you formed that opinion? Like when somebody asks you to have an opinion on something and you haven't learned about it, you haven't studied it, you're not drawing on your learning to have that opinion, so where is it that you're drawing from? And what political scientists say is that we basically draw from 5 different wells, and I want to talk about all 5 of them now. The first well that you draw from in order to form a political opinion is socialization. We tend to learn our political beliefs from our parents, so in general, Republicans beget Republicans and Democrats beget Democrats. Additionally, we learn our views from pastors and friends and neighbors and teachers. So when someone asks us to form an opinion on the spot, the first well we draw from is, What have I been taught about this? The second well we draw from is events. When terrorists attacked the World Trade Towers on September 11, 2001, citizens were more willing to yield their civil liberties in order to prevent another attack. Or another example, a lot of people don't have deeply formed opinions on gun ownership, for example, but when a tragic event happens like a school shooting, that tends to arouse public sentiment against gun ownership. The third well from which we draw to form opinions on the spot is group identity. For example, upper middle class suburbanites tend to have similar opinions on issues. And if one of those suburbanites is asked to form an opinion on which she knows nothing about, then she's likely to think, what have I heard my friends say about this? The fourth well from which we draw to form opinions on the spot is politicians. Now, the practical truth is this: there are so many issues and they are so complicated, every single one of them, that we cannot possibly devote all of our time to understanding each of them. And that's fine. That's why we elect representatives to go to Washington in our place and devote their whole energy and their whole attention to these things, and we listen to what they say. So, for example, during his campaign for president, Donald Trump continually claimed that the electoral process was rigged against him, and polls consistently show that Trump's base has a high degree of mistrust for the government. So most of his followers likely didn't put in the hours upon hours of research to validate this claim. They simply believed him. And now we come to the fifth well, which in my opinion is probably the most intriguing of all the wells we go to draw from in order to form an opinion on the spot. And that well is biology. This argument comes from a guy named John Hibbing in a book called Predisposed. His argument is that genetics play a significant role in the kinds of political opinions that we form. Now let me show you one of the experiments he performed. Now look at this image. All right, now pay attention to how you responded internally to that image. Like, were you disgusted? Were you repulsed? Or did you look at it and say, it's kind of gross, but it's all right? What Hibbing argues in his book is that the reason you had the reaction you had is that because you are genetically wired to have that reaction. Some people say it's disgusting. Others people go, it's all right. Okay, who cares? Now, what does this have to do with political opinions? So glad you asked. The people who were disgusted or had a strong emotional reaction to the picture were far more likely to be politically conservative. Those who had little or no reaction were far more likely to be politically liberal. Now why? Well, his explanation is that conservatives are more neurologically affected by things that are outside of the ordinary, things that break traditional boundaries. Liberals, on the other hand, are more biologically suited for things that are outside the normal traditional experience. And this reaction is at the level of our dang genomes. Now that doesn't mean that one set of genes is wrong and one set of genes is right. It means that we need both positions to fully flourish in this world. Like, we need each other. Conservatives in general are more biologically sensitive to threats. They believe this world is full of threats, which would help explain the conservative love of the Second Amendment. Like, at a biological level, they believe that this is a really ugly and threatening world, and therefore we better arm ourselves to keep us safe and those whom we love safe. On the other hand, liberals, genetically speaking, are less sensitive to threats. Liberals tend to see a world of possibility instead of a world of threats. That's why they look at the conservatives bewildered and say, why do you beat the drum of the Second Amendment so hard? Like, it's not as bad as all that. But you will never be able to explain that to each other because biologically we see the world and experience the world in fundamentally different ways. And in this way, liberals and conservatives need each other. I mean, if the world is all threat, then we're just gonna hunker down and never get anything done. But if we see the world as having no threats, we're likely to relax and become vulnerable to the threats that actually do exist. Okay, let's stop for a second. Have I offended you yet? Like, I can imagine somebody objecting to all this and saying, oh, so you're just saying that all my political opinions are pre-programmed into my genes and I actually can't do anything about them, and I'm not even a thinking person who's capable of coming to my own opinions. And my answer is no. I'm not saying you're less than a thinking person. I'm saying that you're more than a thinking person. You can absolutely form a political opinion that opposes your natural biology, but it takes work. And what I'm trying to say is that we don't form our political opinions in a vacuum without any outside influences. There are so many things that influence our political opinions, we just have to be aware of them. All right, now let's move to the third part. I want to try to apply some of this. And listen very carefully to this, because I feel like if you get what I'm about to say here, then a lot of our arguments over political issues will cease, or at least be eased and lessened. Application number 1. Can we just make friends with not having a fully formed political opinion on every issue? Can we just have some grace toward each other? Could we just make friends with this simple phrase, I don't No. Like, I don't know how many times my students ask me for an opinion on a political issue and they expect me to have an answer because I'm their government teacher, for crying out loud. But probably more than half the time, and my students can testify to this, I say, yeah, I don't know anything about that. I would need to research that a lot more to have anything decisive to say about it. And frankly, foreign aid in Uzbekistan is not that interesting to me, so I'm not likely to do the research. So, I don't know. So when we're asked about opinions about something we genuinely don't know, how about we just start saying, I don't know. All right, application number 2 has to do with the issues that we actually do know something about. In case you haven't been alive for more than like 7 minutes, you should know that when people start talking about politics, it can get ugly very quick. And here's why. When most people share their political opinion with me, and you tell me if this is your experience as well, there's the opinion, but then there's the thing that's underneath the opinion. And the thing that's underneath the opinion is this: no thinking person could disagree with what I'm saying. That's actually very offensive and demeaning to the person you're talking to, because it assumes that if I disagree with you, that I'm some kind of unthinking rube. So no wonder people get offended. So I would like to submit a remedy for this situation. Let us adopt a magical phrase that could neutralize the offense. And here it is. It seems to me. If you attach those 4 words to any of your political discourse, it will communicate the humility that ought to be with our political opinions. Like, the person I'm talking to really is a thinking person and might have very good reasons for thinking the way that they do. And when I say it seems to me that, insert political opinion, it at least upholds their dignity as a thinking person and upholds my humility as somebody who doesn't actually know everything. Okay, third application. What if you actually want to develop a fully formed opinion on something by doing research? Well, here are the steps I would take. Suppose you want to develop an opinion on climate change. Step 1, go to the Republican and Democratic Party websites and read each of their platforms on this issue. The Republicans say that the climate is important, but we shouldn't overly regulate businesses in consideration of the environment. The Democrats, on the other hand, say that the rising temperature of the planet is our fault and we have to do whatever possible to change that outcome. Okay, now you see the 2 major arguments. There may be more than that, but just start with those 2. The second thing you would do is just ask, which of these do you most naturally agree with? And if it's neither, just choose one of them. I mean, you have to travel in some direction, so if there's no apparent difference between the paths, well, just take one. You may find that by researching one position, you actually have sympathy for the other. And the third step is actually doing the research. And the best place to research is books. And the reason I say that is because books are a long-form treatment of whatever issue you're looking into, and because they're so long, they can tease out the implications of the data and they can answer potential objections. And if you're wondering how much you have to read to have a truly informed opinion, well, I guess that's subjective, but I once had a PhD tell me that it takes about 10,000 pages of reading to consider yourself an amateur in any subject. So get comfortable. It will take years. And look, that's why most people don't have fully formed opinions on most issues. It is hard work that takes years. And we have other things that legitimately demand our attention, like school and work and our families. But on the other hand, if there's an issue that means something to you, then all the effort that you have to put in to understand it is worth it. So hopefully this video brought some sanity into your life and provides the occasion for some more civil discourse between people. And if it did that, I'm a happy man. I'll see you next time. All right, thanks for watching. Now, it seems to me that it would be a good thing to do to subscribe to this channel, because if you do, I'll make you more videos like this one. Also, if you think more people could stand to have some humility in their political discourse, then hit that like button and YouTube will serve it up to them. And finally, this subject is entirely fascinating to me, and so I'd really like to know what you think, so let me know down in the comments below. I'll see you on the flip-flop.